Hello, everyone. Welcome to Overtime. My name is Nicholas Lamar Suter, and with me today is Xandring. We are covering the ongoing coup in South Korea. There's been some significant misinformation coming out on it. Every time I worry that I may be out of a job, I read what mainstream media is saying about things that are verifiably false, and I realize in time we'll be able to run forever. Let me like to get let's see if we can that because sorry we I will admit ran a little ahead of when I was intending, and so you're getting the usual in-time experience. I'm going to need a minute to catch up. We are on our Discord following this. We haven't actually had much news since, well, actually, really for the last 2 hours. CNN and a few other news organizations are reporting that the martial law has been lifted by the president. That is false. That is a misread of the statement made by the president. We are going to discuss that momentarily, but that is clearly not what the president said. His statement was deliberately misleading, and for whatever reason, I don't know if people at CNN didn't pass high school, but it is clearly not what he has said, and it does not appear to be what he is doing. So let's start from the beginning. At 11 p.m. at night, the president of South Korea issued an order of martial law. He attempted to breach the assembly building, which does in fact legally have the power to overturn that martial law. The assembly met, and from what we can tell, we believe they had quorum. For those of you who do not know what quorum means, it is simply the minimum number of people needed to vote. Quorum is a rule in most assemblies, certainly exists in Congress. It basically says that, if only one person shows up to vote, then it doesn't count. You don't have quorum. You have to have a minimum number of the people who can vote present to vote for the vote to count. That is quorum. It's obviously there for any number of reasons, not the least of which is before quorum was required in England, I believe, they actually went around and arrested members of the opposing party so they couldn't show up to vote, and only one party would show up. So quorum requires that there's sufficient people that ostensibly voices will be heard. Often you've also heard of members of Congress fleeing the state so that quorum cannot be made and votes can't be had in Congress. At any rate, there is a question as to whether or not the South Korean parliament had quorum, but our understanding is that they did, that they had sufficient people to vote. One reason they were having difficulties making quorum is because the army, the military police, were dispatched to break into the assembly building and to bar anyone from entering so that that vote could not be had. Civilians protested and blocked the military police from entering. A special forces unit arrived by helicopter on the roof of the National Assembly building, entered, and as they did so, that vote was held. Again, we believe there was quorum, but we do not know. The vote was unanimous. It was actually 190 to 0 in favor of overturning the martial law decree. This is legally binding according to the South Korean Constitution, so this presumably would have ended it. At that point, the special forces left the building via broken window, and it looked as if things may be over. At that time, the president expanded the martial law decree to news outlets, saying he was shutting all of them down, and issued arrest orders for members of the opposing party. Let's see, this included 𝐍𝐢𝐜𝐚𝐬, who was the leader of the Democratic Party of Korea, Han Dong-hun, the People Power Party leader, and 𝐒𝐢𝐜𝐜𝐡𝐨𝐥𝐚𝐬, Democratic Party of Korea. There is now arrest warrants for all three of those individuals. The auspices of this is that he believes there are North Korean infiltrators, and he needs to stop them by declaring martial law at 11 p.m. when everybody's asleep. It's crystal clear to all of us here, and I think to most people watching, that this is actually about his losing political power. He is currently at I think, 24% approval rating. That was before trying to take over the country. And his wife is under investigation for a number of financial scandals and a few other things, and it looks like he's attempting to get out of that. At that point, South Korean citizens helped National Assembly members actually, this was prior, the way they got into the building so that they could vote was citizens were actually helping them get over the walls to get around the military police that have been blocking the National Assembly. Again, we don't know if there was quorum, but we believe there was. They are claiming that there was, but as of this moment, we haven't had any significant news in the last 2 hours. I suspect that's because of the martial law being declared on news outlets. Review of the Assembly Hall security cameras show military attempting to arrest the Speaker of the Assembly and the Democratic Party chairman before they could head into the main hall to vote to override the martial law. And here's where things get a little tricky. The president came out with a statement saying that he is lifting martial law. CNN and other news organizations are reporting that martial law was lifted as of 2.5 hours ago. That is the statement in most mainstream media that I have seen so far. His cabinet has approved this statement and approved the lifting of martial law. I'm going to read this statement lifting martial law to you. Dear citizens, I declared martial law at 11 o'clock last night with a firm will to save the country against anti-state forces that are trying to paralyze the essential functions of the state and destroy the constitutional order of liberal democracy. However, a little while ago, the National Assembly demanded the lifting of martial law, so the troops deployed for martial law affairs were withdrawn. Martial law will be lifted immediately by accepting the National Assembly's request through the State Council meeting. However, although we have immediately convened a State Council meeting, as it is early in the morning and a quorum for resolution has not yet been met, martial law will be lifted as soon as it is reached. However, we request the National Assembly to immediately stop its reckless actions and that paralyze the functions of the state through repeated impeachment, legislative manipulation, and budget manipulation. 𝐒𝐨𝐿𝐴𝐻𝑒𝐚, did you listen to that?
I did.
Thoughts?
He did not lift the martial law. He's claiming that there isn't a quorum available in order to lift it, but that he will as soon as there is one.
Martial law has not been lifted to the best of our ability to ascertain. His statement lifting the martial law clearly does not do so. it does in the first paragraphs. He does say, or he says, martial law will be lifted immediately. But you kind of need to read the rest of that sentence. So, well, like, as I said before, this is why In Time is here. I used to loathe CNN. I'm starting to love CNN because it's like, if it wasn't for CNN, we would not have a job. This is the latest news that we have, is that he filed a statement that he claims lifts martial law, that the media outlets that we've been looking at claim lift martial law, and absolutely in no way whatsoever lifts martial law. We know for a fact that as of the last information we had, which was 2.5 hours ago, he had issued arrest warrants for members of the state council, which are the only ones that can make quorum. They have to, I believe, be in the building to hold a meeting, and last I heard, there is no access to the building because it has been blocked by the state police. No, they already held a meeting to overturn the martial law. He is claiming that they did not have quorum, and therefore that meeting does not count. They then evacuated the building, and that I'm aware of, have no way to come back, have no way to meet, and have no way to hold the vote that he says he will honor as soon as they make it. This is obviously shenanigans. I'm trying to be good and swear less. There is no non-swear word that can apply to what he's doing here. This is obviously a attempt to completely overthrow the government and make it look like he's not doing it. But that statement, I'm looking at people saying, "Oh, he lifted martial law. Here's the statement," and then I read the statement, and I'm not. It's clearly not what that says. I really. Is Andrew any thoughts? Because I'm a little speechless right now.
Well, obviously the first one that comes to mind is "May you live in interesting times," and that's definitely interesting. What chaos is going on? It's a little boggling to me that the entire function of a portion of their government is dependent upon being inside of a certain building. It's like, oh, you want to block access to this building? Okay, fine. We'll go over to this building and continue governance there. The fact that they can't seem to do that.
Well, let me ask you this. Does Congress have to, does the Senate have to be in the Senate building to hold official meetings? Or can they just go to like a Motel 6 and, gather in a conference room and gavel it in there? I honestly don't know.
If we were to apply what's going on in South Korea to here, say Trump came in, declared martial law, then blocked the Capitol building complex, and then said, no, you can't. But it's like, okay, well, I'll rescind all of this. All the stuff same. Well, yeah, the Senate would simply convene at a different building, probably at the Hilton, and everybody would get together. They would have the news agencies with them to witness everything, and they would continue having, they're senators. They still have the power, irrespective of the freaking building they're in. It's like they could absolutely come together and overturn something.
Okay, good. Well, no, I don't know. I think I was just imbuing them with magical, it's like, the senator must stand on the floor of the Senate and call the meeting to order before. I don't know what the rules are. So if the rules specifically say on the
circumstances,
floor,
in normal circumstances, it's like if just today everybody decided to meet up at the Hilton and do Congress business there. No, that wouldn't fly. You would have to go to the Capitol building and observe all of the forums. But the normal conditions don't apply. This would be considered a constitutional emergency, and the building wouldn't matter. as long as you can actually get all of the senators and the House, for that matter, together in any one place where you can actually record and verify what's going on. Especially if it's the lame duck president trying to take over government for what appears to be fairly shabby and almost paranoid, delusional reasons.
Well, and his own party at this point has denounced him, the opposing party, before the arrest warrants were issued. Just when he declared martial law, said that made a full demand and required that he explain the reasoning for the martial law. Obviously, that has not happened, and arrest warrants were issued for anybody questioning this shortly thereafter. Again, I'm looking on the internet now. There may be. I mean, I'll check out Associated Press in a minute and see what they're saying. They're usually phenomenally reliable. But what I'm seeing is that he's issued an order lifting it. He's issued an order that says this is an order lifting it. It says in the first paragraph, I am lifting it, and then he says, but only after. And that's
it's an order contingent.
Yeah. He is working his ass off to make sure that contingency is not met. So there's absolutely nothing here that's in good faith. Now, for those of you who are new to In Time, we get a lot of our news from mainstream media, and we break it down and we dissect it, and we see where we think it's credible and where it's not. We also get a lot of our news on social media. When Prigozhin decided to, was it Prigozhin? Yeah, when the Wagner Group decided to invade Russia, we were covering that for 8 hours before it made mainstream media. The reason is because we got it off of Facebook. And when we first heard about it, we said, okay, can we verify it? And when we verified it through other sources that were geolocated on the ground in that area, where they're like, yeah, this is happening. So we do rely on social media. We do verify it, but that's one reason we tend to be ahead of things. Right now, we're not seeing a lot of social media out of South Korea. And if I recall, South Korea has only one major government-run, if I recall, news agency. So it's South Korean cable news, I believe it is. So if that's been severed, In Time has lost its primary way of getting news that we get usually ahead of mainstream media. So we're about as in the dark as everyone else, except for the fact that we can read. Let me.
I have a feeling most of this is going to come down to what are the law enforcement institutions and the military going to do, because he's going to have the support of them in order to prevent the government from coming together someplace or overturning all of this. So it's like he can't do it by himself.
Yeah, and so far, I mean, the speed with which the special forces withdrew from the building suggests to me that they were already a little nervous about invading their own parliament building. The president apparently, okay, so the AP is saying, Associated Press is saying, South Korea lifts president's martial law decree after. Okay, that's interesting. Okay, that's a very interesting the way that's worded. South Korea lifts president's martial law decree. So what they are saying is not that the president lifted it. They're saying that in the text. So the president of South Korea lifted the martial law imposed on the country. To the best of my knowledge, he has not lifted it. The only statement we have is the statement that lifts it conditionally if a quorum is held by the parliament ordering him to lift it, and he is saying that has not happened. We believe that, in fact, that has successfully happened, Um, wow. Associated Press is contradicting themselves. Police and military personnel were seen leaving the grounds of Parliament following a bipartisan vote to overrule the president, and the declaration was formally lifted around 4:30 a.m. by a cabinet meeting. So I don't know whether they're claiming it was lifted by the cabinet meeting or by the president himself. The last we've seen, the president's words were clear. He will lift it when there is a cabinet meeting with sufficient members necessary to lift the martial law, but that has not occurred. We believe it has occurred. We could calculate it has occurred and probably will at some point because we know there was 190, so we just need to know what constitutes a quorum in South Korea, and I guess I was absent that day in school, so I don't know what constitutes a quorum for them, but they had 190.
What?
Yeah, I know.
Man, you must have skipped out on like an entire week where they just went in depth into exactly how the South Korean government functions.
The things that you end up needing to know, it's like I did not think I would need to know what constitutes a quorum in South Korean in the South Korean cabinet. That was not. That was not on my to-do list to memorize.
Well, if I recall, somebody, and this may be unverified, and again, I apparently was absent that week as well. There's apparently 300 total in the government there, and 190 of them made it in to vote, and all 190 voted to suspend it or to overturn it. But I don't know, is 190? I mean, that's more than half.
It's more than half.
Apparently, there's 300.
A quorum is usually either half or 2/3. So in this case, it's going to be important to know the difference, because if the quorum is half, they made it. If the quorum is 2/3, they did not. They came close, though. And again, those guys had to scale the walls because they had to get around the military police, not only blocking the door, but trying to get in to arrest them. So I guess the remaining question is quorum for them 1/3 or 1/2. 2/3 or 1/2. It's most likely going to be one of those. But all right, well, thank you for finding that out. So 190, at least they broke a half, and it was bipartisan. His own party has at this point denounced him. I'm going to go out on a limb and say that his 24% approval rating has probably dropped. We haven't actually taken polls on this. This is not scientific data, but I'm going to say that his approval rating has gone down a little bit, which is impressive, because it's like, if you're already at 24%, what the hell do you have to do to go lower? Well, try to take over the country, I suppose. He has nothing to lose, saying that this was, quote, a Hail Mary pass. Okay. This is the Chair for Strategic and International Studies, saying that he is now facing impeachment. But
according to Wikipedia, for the government of South Korea, Wikipedia to the rescue. So take that with whatever grains of sand you believe are necessary for Wikipedia. It says, in order for laws to be passed in any session, a quorum of half the members must be present.
They did it.
The majority of the cabinet members are present at the meeting.
Yeah, I'm going to assume that's accurate. I just because, listen, Wikipedia, again, anyone can do anything, but the reality is, I don't think somebody's sitting around, say, hey, let's screw with the North Korean Wikipedia page and make up shit. So, yeah, that means they almost certainly made quorum. We are very confident now in the 190 number. That means they did, in fact, successfully overturn martial law. So now the question, I think, is going to fall exactly as you just said, Azandering. The question is going to fall to the military. Are they going to accept the 190 number, in which case they know for a fact that the martial law has been overturned and they should not be following the orders of the president? Or are they going to follow the president, who says quorum was not met and the law has, and, he'd be happy to overturn the law as soon as there's quorum, but, he's a law-abiding citizen. There wasn't quorum, and, he's not going to, but as soon as there is, he'll, and in the meantime, he's arresting absolutely everybody he can. So it looks like, I think we can say with a reasonable degree of certainty that the cabinet was successful, at least legally, in overturning the declaration of martial law. Having said that, given that there seems to be a blackout from media coming from the country, and that we do know of arrest warrants being issued after that time for leaders of the opposition party, and I think even the leader of his own party, my suspicion is it hasn't actually been lifted. So at this point, it is absolutely a full-blown coup d'etat. He is acting above and beyond his powers. The martial law has been revoked, and he is engaging it anyway. So I think it's going to come down to what you said. I think it's going to come down to what the military decides. Any other thoughts?
According to Wikipedia, a quorum was in fact met, and then according to the president, because it was early in the morning, a quorum wasn't yet met. So now we have a contradiction between of who's believing who, and it's a mess, and it's really going to depend upon what law enforcement agencies and the military will do.
All right,
what side are they going to come down on?
Yep. So there's a question, and so I'll do one more rundown. This is going to be short. It's an update, and we have some new information, but not a whole heck of a lot. This is thank you, Titan. Was martial law lifted? That's a really good question, and like a lot of coup d'etats, it really depends on who you ask. So the president declared martial law at 11. The cabinet / assembly / parliament, it's not, I think, technically parliament, but it functions like a parliament, so we've been calling it a parliament, and since I'm sifting through so much information, I apologize if I call it one. It is a parliamentary system. So at any rate, they decided they do have the legal power to overturn a presidential declaration of martial law. They decided to exercise that power and went to Parliament in the middle of the night to overturn it. Military police were sent to block them from getting into the building. A number apparently got in before that happened, and the rest had civilian help in scaling the walls so that they could get into the building. They held a vote. Only 190 out of 300 members made it into the building to vote. All 190 voted to overturn the law. To the best of our understanding, a quorum is met with half or more of the members present. That would be 150 or more. Since 190 were present, quorum was met. That means legally the martial law was overturned. The president then made a statement. He claimed that this was a statement acknowledging and withdrawing the martial law. That is what he claimed. That statement, and I remember when there was a Supreme Court ruling, I forget what it was a short while ago, but if you read the first 3 paragraphs of the ruling, it really looked like they were saying they were ruling one way. And so people read it and announced on air live, they're like, they ruled this way, they ruled this way, and they didn't finish the page. And when they got to the end of the page, they realized, no, they ruled the other way. And that was fun. Anyways, it looks like President Yoon has really done the same thing. He has made a statement. He claims that this statement is a withdrawal of martial law. I'm going to read the statement. I read it once. It's short, so I will read it again, and I do think it's important. Statement from President Yoon as follows. Dear citizens, I declared martial law at 11 o'clock last night with a firm will to save the country against anti-state forces that are trying to paralyze the essential functions of the state and destroy the constitutional order of liberal democracy. However, a little while ago, the National Assembly demanded the lifting of martial law, so the troops deployed for martial law affairs were withdrawn. Everything he's just said is roughly true to this point. This is how things went down. So what he's saying is they voted to, they demanded to lift the martial law, so he withdrew the troops. We're clear on this so far. Martial law will be lifted immediately by accepting the National Assembly's request through a state council meeting. Okay, wait a minute. So it will be. He hasn't done it yet. It will be. He's withdrawn the troops, which apparently are back out, but okay. So he's hedging now. Let's see where this goes. However, although we have immediately convened a state council meeting, as it is still early in the morning and the quorum for this resolution has not been met, martial law will be lifted as soon as it is reached. All right, what he is saying here is, yeah, they did tell me to stop, but they couldn't legally because there wasn't a quorum, largely because he was preventing people from entering the building. So once they can get together, I will happily follow the law. The problem is we believe at this point quite strongly that a quorum was met. A quorum, we believe, is at 150 or more, and 190 voted. So this is a lie. A quorum was made, and he was ordered to withdraw the troops, and the martial law was repealed by the cabinet. However, the president who declared martial law is saying no, it was not, because they did not have a quorum, which is, by the way, obviously why he did this at 11 p.m. He didn't do this during business hours because he didn't want them to stop him. We request that the National Assembly immediately stop its reckless actions that paralyze the functions of the state through repeated impeachment, legislative manipulation, and budget manipulation. That statement is vapid. It doesn't mean a thing. It has no bearing on what is going on right now. So, has martial law been lifted? It appears, by every legal definition, yes, it has. The president, who has the power to enact martial law, is saying that it hasn't been lifted. He will happily do so once the legal requirements are met, but he is denying that it has been lifted, and to the best of our understanding, troops are still deployed, martial law is still in effect, newspapers are still shut down, and there's still arrest warrants for the leaders of every opposing party. That is what we know. Call that martial law or don't. It's up to you, but the answer to has martial law been lifted is a lot murkier than I think people are giving it credit for. We do have a source. It's let's see, Korean. It looks like it is a Korean news source, and to the best of our understanding, it's coming from KCTU, one of South Korea's biggest unions. They have declared an indefinite general strike until Yoon resigns. They are also demanding a rally in Seoul early Wednesday, which their time is basically, in my understanding, is essentially immediately. So it looks like, I mean, he already had a 24% approval rating. There was enough civilian protesters, even at 11 p.m., to A, block his military police from entering the assembly building until he actually brought in special forces, and B, actually help members of the cabinet to break into the assembly building so that they could have quorum and vote, which it appears they successfully did. Now, one of the biggest unions appears to be calling for an indefinite general strike until he resigns, and given he already enjoyed only 24% approval, and given his own party at this point has denounced his actions, my hope and suspicion is that this is going to be over reasonably soon, unless he has convinced the military, which I don't know how he could do, but unless he's convinced the military that it's worth actually fighting and shooting at their own people to protect him. I don't know. What are your thoughts, Xander?
My thoughts are that lots of what I thought were extremely important people calling me to give me extremely important news weren't, in fact, extremely important people with quite frivolous news, and so I missed what you just said.
That's all right. I get that all the time.
Well, it's like, oh no, I hope they don't miss me for a few moments because this looks like it could be really important. And I answered it and went through the rigmarole, and it's like, okay, why did you call me? This is ridiculous, and just go away. And so I hung it up just in time to hear. So, what are your thoughts on this, 𝐍𝐤𝐜𝐴ndering? People need to have actually important things to tell me before they call me.
We have pretty strict protocols for how to communicate with me during the show. Very strict protocols, and people who don't abide by them get notified reasonably quickly what to do during a live show. Precisely for that reason, the news has to get sifted before it gets to me because I don't have time to be reading stuff. But you have, I think, forgotten in your contract that there is a clause that says if you ever don't know the answer to the question, the answer is, I agree with everything you just said, Nick.
I agree with everything you just said.
Perfect.
That was a brilliant analysis, and
thank you.
I'm glad we have you.
Thank you. I'm delighted to be here. So what I had said was I gave a rundown once again of everything. I repeated the statement. His own party has denounced him. There had been a question in the live chat. Wait a minute! I heard martial law was repealed. So why, are you saying there's still martial law? Well, it depends on, legally. It appears. I think we can defend the statement that legally it has been repealed. We are very certain that they had 190 in the room for the vote. We are rather certain that the vote was held legally, and we are rather certain that 150 constitutes quorum. So that would mean that legally the martial law has been repealed. Having said that, the president issued a statement saying that they did not have quorum and that as soon as they got it, he would repeal the martial law. So the president says it's not repealed. The legislature says it is, and the law appears very strongly to side with them. So far, the military has, to the best of our knowledge, still surrounded the Parliament building. There are arrest warrants for each leader of each party, including, I believe, his own party, who has, at this point, denounced him. We believe one of the largest unions, the KCTU, has declared a indefinite general strike until the president resigns. He already enjoyed a whopping 24% popularity rating before doing this, and so far the civilians have been blocking military police from entering the building, assisting lawmakers to get over the walls and break into their own parliament building, and are working very hard to oppose this. So I think he's probably in very big trouble unless the military is keen on shooting its own civilians, which I hope not. I don't think they are. I wouldn't know. So that's my analysis of where we are. So I was curious as to your thoughts.
It sounds like it sounds like the president's trying to play whack-a-mole with the parliament in order to try and keep them from coming back together again, while conveniently ignoring that they were together for a quorum earlier. And again, it's still going to matter what the law enforcement agencies and the military does. I mean, South Korea was a military dictatorship all the way up to the late 1980s, so there's fairly recent history of a military dictatorship. Maybe some of the military is thinking, hey, that would probably be a great way to go again. But I'm not an expert in South Korean politics. I've been to South Korea at least a couple of times, but we were much more interested in buying stuff and getting drunk at the time. So I did not take in the wealth of cultural sites or information during those trips. So we're going to have to sit around and watch and see what happens. It does appear that he's trying to continue to enforce the martial law because, the building's still being blocked. Media is still being told, hey, we'll arrest you if you do anything. So, we're getting very little information out, and now it seems to be kind of a standoff. And I have a feeling that what's going on is kind of what we do in the shadows.
So we have somebody in the live chat saying the Minister of Defense says he will not lift it until the cabinet formalizes lifting it. That is correct. He did say that at least once. He said that just before the vote was held, if I recall correctly. If he has now said that again since the vote, that's extremely important, because if he has said that since the vote, that means that he is on board with the president denying that there was a quorum. Apparently there is video footage. We actually have screenshots of the vote. It was unanimous. It was 190, which, to the best of our understanding, in South Korea, a quorum is made at 150 plus 1. So, if he has said that since the vote, then there's probably a very serious problem. If he said that before, we know he said that before the vote. If he's repeated it, so yeah, and the fact that we're all having, I mean, In Time has a number of researchers, and quick plug here, if you wanted, this is what we do, and all of us are nutballs. We enjoy getting ahead of the news, even sometimes, actually many times ahead of mainstream media. It's what we do, we enjoy it, and we are good at it, but we're good at it because we have people who come in and help us out, and it's run by the community. So if you want to come in, join our Discord, see how we do what we do, and join us and become a part of it, we would love to have you, and we appreciate your support. Speaking of, Sinister Porpoise, $2 super chat. Breaking news, P may or may not equal not P. Yeah. Yeah. I think it's because I'm a computer programmer that I really like Sinister Porpoise's sense of humor. Thank you, Sinister Porpoise, for that super chat. We haven't shown any dead bodies on this stream yet, so hopefully we're not going to get demonetized. At any rate, the lack of any news out of South Korea at this point, other than a few things on Blue Sky or Twitter, suggests to me that as of this moment, the military is holding with the president, who says that he is happy, he is delighted to lift martial law as soon as a cabinet meeting is held with a quorum, forcing him to do so. That meeting has already been held. At least we have very high confidence that that meeting has already been held. And everybody holding it quickly evacuated the building since special forces were entering from the roof. How and if they can hold that meeting again, or even the value in doing it, because even if all 300 of them could meet without getting shot, he's just going to say, oh, no, they didn't have a quorum. He's denying what appears to be on camera as an absolute reality. He lost. They had quorum, and they told him the martial law has been lifted, and he is not acknowledging it. So the fact that it's been actually 3 hours now since his statement saying he's happy to remove the martial law, and even longer since the meeting was held, stripping him of that power, the fact that we're not hearing anything significant other than social media suggests to me that the military is still in place and still following orders from him. Whether there is growing legal concern in the military that he's breaking the law and they don't want to back him, or whether they've just decided, hey, he's our guy, come hell or high water, I don't know. But it's concerning that mainstream media in South Korea is not back online from what we can tell. So while it does look like it was legally lifted, he's still enforcing the martial law, and he does not acknowledge that lifting of it. I don't know. Does that sound like a pretty accurate statement to you?
Yeah, sounds like reminds me of the kid who doesn't want to admit reality when you tell him the sky is blue and he's looking at the green grass and he just says, no, it's not. And you said, yes, it is. And he's like, prove it. It's like, simply look up. Go ahead and prove it. I'm waiting. No, you need to just simply look up. Look, there's no clouds in the sky. You can clearly see the sky. It is blue. He continues to stare at the grass and just says, nope, you have to prove it. That's exactly what it sounds like.
That is. I like that example. I like that example. That's a better example than mine, although mine was at least slightly more apropos. It's like when an incumbent president loses an election, but is like, no, I didn't. Yes, you didn't get the same number of votes. Yes, I did. No, look here. Can you count? You lost. No, I didn't. All we need to do is go find the votes. They're there. Let's just go find them. Oh, dear Lord. All right. So we are going to be having an in time at 9 p.m. Eastern Standard. We have a lot to discuss. The Hunter Biden pardon. We're going to be discussing what's happening in Syria, U.S. Bombing Iranian militia trying to enter Syria to help out the Assad regime, while Russia is struggling to maintain its support for the Assad regime and gain as much land as it can in Ukraine before Trump comes in and ostensibly freezes the war exactly where it is. So I've invited Commander McMillan to join Azandring and I on that stream tonight, 9 p.m. Eastern Standard. I hope you will join us for that. And if there's anything else genuinely breaking or significant before then, we will let you know, and we'll come back. But I'm hoping we can make it 3 hours and just cover it on our regular show. Please do hit the like and subscribe button; those do help. And let's all wish luck to South Korea, because I think the last thing anyone wants is to have them revert back to a dictatorship. It looked like this guy had a snowball's chance in hell, but the fact that it's been 2 hours with no significant news is concerning. So we will see. Zandering, thank you for joining us.
A pleasure, as always.
See you all 9 p.m. Eastern. Have a good night.